This Florida man stole clothes because, well, he needed clothes. He's actually a logical Florida man. Then this girl pretended to be interested in buying a Porsche, but instead stole the car from the owner and then ran him over. What are some of the other wild crimes people commit? Let's find out, starting with number 8, the rational Florida man. Florida man Brandon Wright was arrested after a bizarre attempt to steal another man's clothes while wielding a machete like he's the Terminator or something. The incident went down near the Volusia County Fairgrounds, where a surveyor reported that Wright, who for some reason was collecting palmetto berries, suddenly approached him with a large machete and demanded his clothes, wallet, and phone. As the surveyor began to hand over his belongings, Wright threw the machete and some berries at him before fleeing in a white Dodge Challenger. No one knows if it was his car or someone else's. Fortunately, the surveyor wasn't injured. Wright's vehicle was later picked up by a license plate reader, and not long after, reports came in of a man not wearing any clothes causing a scene at a nearby gas station. From a helicopter, authorities tracked Wright as he walked around the gas station parking lot, shouting at passerbys and even doing push-ups near the entrance. Eventually, Wright laid down on the ground and was arrested without further incident. Wright was charged with multiple crimes, including attempted robbery and aggravated battery. Unsurprisingly, this wasn't his first run-in with the law either. Wright had been involved in a similar situation just a few years earlier, running around without clothes and making weird demands. His history of unusual behavior and legal issues, which include prior convictions for false imprisonment and possession, paints a picture of a man who's no stranger to strange antics. The whole situation is super weird, and it's clear there's either some substance issues, mental health issues, or both. With that being said, let's just run through the thought process here. If you're out foraging for berries with your machete, and you suddenly notice that you're not wearing any clothes, it is rational to try and get some clothes, right? And then, when someone doesn't get you any clothes, you run to a car and leave in embarrassment, but the gas light is on it. Well, it's time to get some gas. But then, people are upset about you still not having any clothes on, and they're probably yelling at you, so maybe you take that as body shaming. So, as their hurtful words sink in, you decide to make a change in your life by doing some exercise, and the time is always now. This is the most rational Florida man we've ever heard. No? Number 7. Another day in Chicago. A 21-year-old student from the University of Chicago, known only as Madelyn, found herself in a dangerous situation when an armed robber confronted her near the campus. This incident was part of a series of robberies that took place within minutes of each other, targeting multiple students. While walking home from class, Madelyn noticed a man wearing a mask approaching her, which is totally not suspicious. Initially, she tried to keep walking, but the encounter quickly escalated when the armed mugger demanded her phone. Surveillance footage showed her glancing around for help, although no one intervened, even though there were 2 guys right there, literally watching. Anyway, in a surprising turn of events, Madelyn managed to wrestle with the robber and grab hold of his firearm. Without realizing exactly what she was doing at the time, she removed the magazine from the firearm and tossed it into a nearby bush. Despite this bold move, the robber still made off with her phone, jumping into a waiting getaway car. Just minutes earlier, 2 other students had been robbed in a similar fashion by a group of suspects who fled in a black Infiniti. Both incidents happened on one of the busiest blocks near the university's campus. Thankfully, no one was physically harmed in any of the encounters. Although the situation was intense, Madelyn later reflected that resisting the robbery might not have been the best choice, despite her instincts kicking in. She said that while she acted out of fear, she didn't recommend to others to do the same thing in similar situations, which we 100% agree with. It's always great to hear stories of people fighting back and winning, but more often than not, those stories and in tragedy. Remember, stuff is just stuff, and stuff can be replaced, but your life cannot. However, thank goodness Madelyn was able to not only defend herself, but she was able to most likely embarrass this mugger who ended up biting off more than he could chew. Number 6. Crazy in Yosemite. Anthony Melhaff, a 40-year-old from Los Angeles, found himself at the center of a wild crime spree that stretched across Central California. What started as a strange encounter at a restaurant quickly escalated into a dangerous chain of events. The whole thing started when Melhaff approached a pregnant waitress and started saying that spirits had led him to her and that the baby was his, and when was her break so he could wait for her. So already we're not off to a strong start here. After that super creepy moment, he stole some drinks from the bar, physically confronted another worker, and sped off in his car heading towards Yosemite National Park. Things only got worse from there. After he crashed his car near Fish Camp, a small community located near the southern entrance of Yosemite National Park, he stole a bicycle and made his way to Tenaya Lodge, a full-service resort designed to provide a more upscale experience for visitors with a range of amenities including comfortable lodging, dining options, a spa, and various recreational activities. Melhaff snuck into the lodge by climbing through the kitchen and bizarrely left some of his belongings, some of his clothes, inside a refrigerator. He then stripped down even more to only his underwear and moved to the main area of the lodge where he began threatening the staff and customers. It was during this time that he tried to force the lodge manager to drive him away from the area. Of course, the manager wasn't going anywhere with him, so Melhaff eventually stole the manager's car and engaged in extreme road rage with a Tesla, ramming the vehicle several times. Eventually, deputies caught up with him after he crashed again, ending his spree. Even after being taken into custody, he continued to cause trouble, hitting officers at the hospital. Authorities later found a smoke canister in his wrecked car, adding more concern to the situation since, what on earth did he need one of those for? As of the release of this video, Melhaff faces multiple charges and is being held on $100,000 bail. While no one was seriously harmed, the incident likely traumatized everyone involved. It sounds like old kooky Melhaff was trying to give Florida man a run for his money, huh? Number 5. Puff of smoke. Hazar Mohammed Pani and Hubert Smolarek were sentenced for their roles in smuggling over 117 million illegal cigarettes into the UK. Their operation, which evaded around 36 million pounds in taxes, were exposed after authorities cracked the EncroChat network, a communication tool used by criminals after it was brought down by the famous Operation Venetic. The gang concealed the illegal cigarettes in semi-trucks, using tactics such as hiding them inside bags, hollowed-out plasterboard, or disguising the cargo with false paperwork as frozen food. Additionally, they stashed large amounts of cash, proceeds from their operations, in unexpected places, such as under a baby's changing mat and inside a diaper bag at Mohammed Pani's house, attempting to avoid detection during police searches. The gang sent millions of pounds to Poland to a mysterious figure known only as Big Boss, which sounds about as comic book villain of a name as you could get. Despite nationwide restrictions in place at the time due to the pandemic lockdown, the group continued their scheme, even discussing ways to avoid getting caught as most people stayed indoors. What stood out were the extravagant ways they handled their illegal profits. Referring to bundles of cash as sandwiches, they packaged them and sent the money out of the country. The scale of their operation was so massive that it took hours to count the cash, with the gang even wearing masks to avoid inhaling the dust created during the process. In the end, their network was dismantled, and millions in cash were seized. Though they both claimed they were trying to improve their families' lives, Hazar Mohammed Pani was sentenced to 7.5 years in prison, while Hubert Smolarek received a sentence of 7 years and 4 months. In this day and age, you wouldn't really think that cigarette smuggling would be a thing outside of prison, right? But then again, the way they are taxed, we suppose it shouldn't really be a surprise. Number 4. Family bonding. Grandmother Helen Stegmoller, an elderly lady, was taken into custody for breaking into her tenant's home and stealing 2 televisions, then trashing the place. What made the situation even more surprising was that she brought her grandson, Robert, along for the crime. Helen was apparently attempting the difficult process of evicting a tenant when she decided to take matters into her own hands. According to court records, Robert admitted to police that they went into the tenant's trailer and took the TVs because, in his words, the tenant owed his grandmother a significant amount of money. As if that wasn't enough, the two then decided to trash the home, dumping the tenant's belongings on the floor and scattering trash and dog food throughout the house. Robert claimed they had the right to do this since Helen owned the property, demonstrating he clearly knows nothing about tenant rights and property rights. And the thing was, they pulled this during the pandemic shutdown when everyone was stressing about money and loads of people were laid off. We don't know why the tenant had such a massive debt, but there were other ways for Helen to get financial help that didn't involve breaking the law. When questioned by officers, Helen didn't shy away from admitting to taking the televisions. She even tried to excuse her actions by claiming that the tenant had wronged her financially, claiming the woman owed her $30,000. Despite her confession, she tried to keep her grandson out of trouble by insisting she was the mastermind behind the whole incident. Both stolen TVs were recovered by authorities, but Helen and Robert got hit with charges for breaking and entering, as well as taking the tenant's belongings. Helen was apparently pretty unapologetic about the situation, and her dumb moves landed both her and her grandson in some serious legal trouble. As the owner of the property, it's weird that they trashed the tenant's place, though, because it's basically trashing their own place. That's normally something a disgruntled tenant does before getting evicted to get back at the landlord, not the other way around. But then again, these two obviously aren't all that bright. Number 3, heated judge. A California judge is facing trial after a tragic incident at his home involving his wife. Jeffrey Ferguson, an Orange County Superior Court judge, discharged a firearm into his wife, Cheryl Ferguson, following a heated argument. The couple had been out to dinner when the argument started and later continued at home with their 23-year-old son present. The argument between Jeffrey and Cheryl had started over some financial matters during dinner. At one point, Jeffrey made a gesture resembling a firearm, which intensified the tension because, seriously, if that's not a straight-up threat during a serious argument, we don't know what is. When they returned home, the conflict flared up again, particularly when Cheryl referenced that earlier gesture and made a sarcastic remark, suggesting Jeffrey use a real firearm. This comment led to the situation escalating even further when Jeffrey then pulled out an actual firearm and discharged it at Cheryl, hitting her in the chest. Their son immediately called 911, and both he and Jeffrey tried to help Cheryl, but she didn't survive. Jeffrey Ferguson, who had a long and successful legal career, was arrested at the scene. Authorities later found several firearms and thousands of rounds of ammunition in the home. While Jeffrey admitted to the tragedy in texts sent to colleagues, his defense argues that it was a terrible accident and he would never intentionally harm his wife. As the case unfolds, more details are expected to emerge. There have already been questions surrounding Jeffrey's bail after his ankle monitor detected alcohol. Apparently, he's not supposed to be drinking. He claimed that the readings from the monitor were false positives due to using hand sanitizer and cortisone cream, which the judge found unconvincing and ordered a bail increase to $2 million, and he was briefly taken into custody. As of the release of this video, Jeffrey Ferguson is set to go to trial in early 2025. Number 2, The Disturbing Secret. Lynn and Kirk Ritter, a couple from Kansas, were sentenced for their involvement in a weird fraud case. The two had hidden the body of Lynn's father, Michael Carroll, in their home while continuing to collect his retirement benefits for over 6 years. The amount they pocketed? More than $215,000. Authorities revealed that Carroll, who was 81 at the time of his passing, had been receiving retirement and Social Security benefits for years. However, his pacemaker later revealed he had passed in 2016. The Ritters, who lived with him, never reported his passing and instead allowed his benefits to be deposited into his account, which they used for themselves. For years, the couple told family members that Carroll couldn't come to the phone or visit, avoiding suspicion. However, the reality was far more disturbing. When authorities finally investigated, they found Carroll's body in a mummified state, still lying in bed, where he had been since 2016. With the stolen funds, the Ritters made various purchases, continuing to live in Carroll's home without anyone suspecting the truth. It wasn't until late 2022 that Kirk reported his father-in-law's passing, probably because they couldn't maintain the body any longer, finally exposing the fraud. It's seriously crazy that these two left a body to decompose in a room for 6 years. Like, how in the world did they even hide the smell, let alone leave it to a point that it naturally mummified? If you've ever smelled that smell, it's something that stays with you for the rest of your life. So to even tolerate it for that long, let alone live with it, is wild. There's no way they were making enough money to make it even worth it. Number 1, the Canadian carjacking. A woman, whose identity remains unknown, grabbed some headlines after stealing a 2022 Porsche Cayenne from a private driveway. The luxury SUV had been listed for sale on the popular website AutoTrader, but things quickly took a turn during what was supposed to be a routine meeting, possibly selling the car. Arriving at the seller's home, the woman expressed interest in the vehicle, claiming she was waiting for her father to join her. While the seller was showing her the car, she seized the opportunity, jumping behind the wheel and locking the doors. Despite the owner's efforts to stop her, things escalated as she sped out of the driveway, dragging him into the street. Security footage captured the shocking moment when the victim was knocked down by the vehicle's rear wheels. Fortunately, he was able to get back on his feet, though he later reported injuries to his hands, legs, and elbow, requiring medical attention. Adding another interesting layer to the incident, police revealed that an accomplice was parked nearby in a luxury Bentley Bentayga, suggesting that this was no random and impulsive crime. The pair fled the scene, leaving the victim to seek help and file a report. The stolen Porsche and the involvement of another high-end vehicle suggests that this was a well-planned operation. The best advice here would be to make sure you're holding on to the keys the entire time. And if there are any test drives, obviously be in the car as well. Click to watch one of these next videos. Let us know in the comments section what superpower you'd rather have. The ability to go back and relive any memory from your past exactly as it happened, or the ability to pause or fast forward time.